Welcome back in, everybody. Third hour of Clay and Buck kicks off right now. We are joined by Dr. Carol Swain. She's a senior fellow at the Institute for Faith and Culture, also the author of the book, The Adversity of Diversity, which was released this past summer. Dr. Swain, honored to have you on the program.
To meet you. I'm quite excited. Thank you for all the good work you do.
Thank you so much. Let's start with, well, why your name has certainly been in the news cycle for the last week or so. The president of Harvard, still the president as we speak here. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Dr. Gay, there are allegations from a friend of the show, Chris Rufo here, and others that she plagiarized some of your work. I wanted to ask you first about that. I mean, what do you think of those allegations? And what do you think of overall the fact that Dr. Gay seems to be held to a different standard than other university presidents like University of Pennsylvania's who have already resigned?
Well, she is a documented serial plagiarist that cannot be denied. And Harvard University can't decide unilaterally that they're going to change the definition of plagiarism just to protect its first ever black president. So that is certainly the case. And she lifted two passages from my prize winning book, Black Faces, Black Interests, the representation of African Americans in Congress. But her harm to me, I contend, go far beyond that because she did her early research in the area where I was the noted scholar who produced the path breaking work. She built on my work and she did not give me proper acknowledgement or attribution. As a scholar, if you are working in an area where there is a leading professor, you acknowledge their work either to affirm it, to refute it, or to expand it. She would have a citation in her bibliography, but anyone reading Claudine Gay's work would not know that about the work that I was the lead scholar on that was considered path breaking. So that's one issue. The other issue is to get early tenure at Princeton, the requirements back in the 1990s was that you had to have a path breaking book, not a series of mediocre articles. And my book won three national prizes, was cited by many lower courts as well as the Supreme Court. I have three Supreme Court citations. That was the path breaking work that she should have acknowledged in her career. She did not really.
Dr. Swain, I appreciate you coming on. This is Clay. And I first want to say, glad that you have been at Vanderbilt University in the law school and the undergrad. I went to the law school. I think you've done fantastic work there. Um, my understanding is you're a mom, a grandma, and a great grandma. So I want to look at it from this perspective. When you see what Harvard is saying to defend their president right now, Claudine Gay, not only as a scholar, obviously, because you have achieved a tremendous amount in your career, but as a mom, grandma, and great grandma, what do you think when the NAACP says it's racist to question Dr. Gay in any way about her scholarship?
Well, I've been black all of my life, and all of my life, whenever a black person was challenged on the left, the reaction from the elites, it's always racist. And so you can't challenge one of their fellow elite blacks without hearing the charge that it has to be racist. It always has to be racist. If you're white, you have to be a white supremacist. I would say that the people from the NAACP don't really understand the issue. And one of the nuances of the issue as it pertains to me is that in her published work, that we now know that parts of it was plagiarized, she, in my opinion, cheated me out of citations because in academia, your statute depends on how many citations you get. And if there's someone working in an area where you did path breaking work and they're not adequately citing your work or acknowledging it, it hurts you over time. And so I'm a person, I took early retirement from Vanderbilt in 2017 largely because of the woke environment. And when I look at her, who is, quote, a distinguished professor. She won a prize for her senior thesis. She won a prize for her dissertation. And now we know she is a serial plagiarist. I believe that people like her, who've had the most elite education, she went to Phillips Exeter Academy for her high school. Then she went to Harvard University and was tenured at Stanford University. She's education that America has to offer, and yet she has not produced any path-breaking work. I would say her work is mediocre at best. It should not have warranted tenure at Stanford.
Dr. Swain, you no doubt have, I'm sure, thought about what the future holds here in the environment where the Supreme Court has weighed in most recently on affirmative action in college admissions and deemed it unconstitutional. I wanted to know if you think that, given all of your time in academia, that we are at a turning point for both college admissions and also for the hiring of professors when it comes to relying on diversity as a primary, really a game changing indicator of who they're going to take? Or is this just going to be a long series of lawsuits over many, many years to get these schools to start changing how they admit students and how they hire and tenure professors?
Well, we're certainly, I believe, at a turning point, and that's the one reason why this book, The Adversity of Diversity, is important because it points out that CRT and DEI programs violate the Constitution and our civil rights laws in the same way as race based affirmative action. And I also contend that we can have diversity without discrimination. All we have to do is go back to the original intent of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, enforce the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. That does not prohibit outreach to persons, but that outreach needs to be done to qualified individuals of all races. And so it should be the death knell for DEI programs. The left, they've already declared that they're going to resist in the same way as people resisted on the left and on the right. The 1954 Brown versus Board of Education school desegregation ruling, it meant for me as a child, I did not attend integrated schools until the late 1960s because of the massive resistance. Progressives have declared that they're going to continue doing what they've always done. And I have been encouraging white Americans, Asian Americans, men, Christians, various groups who are protected by the civil rights laws to exercise and defend their rights by filing lawsuits. And I know that lawsuits are being won by white Americans and by men who have been discriminated against because they are male, because they have a female boss or female bosses that have accused them of being toxic because they're male, or they've and they openly tell men, they tell white people, we have to promote, someone else. You cannot take advantage of this scholarship or this promotion opportunity because of your race. That is blatantly against the law. More Americans need to know their rights. And one of the things I've tried to do with my research is to make them aware. And so, even before the adversity of diversity, I published a book, um, A Black Eye for America: How Critical Race Theory is Burning Down the House. DEI and critical race theory, both of those theories are deeply rooted in neo Marxism. And the end goal of neo Marxism is to bring down America, to usher in globalism, to get rid of first world countries.
Dr. Swain, do you think if Claudine Gay, the president of Harvard, were fired, that it would be an improvement? Do you think it would send an important message, or is all of this toxicity, with which I think it's fair to say she is a standard bearer for, is it so deeply embedded in these universities now that it doesn't really change anything because the next person up will basically be a clone of Dr. Gay in many ways as well, in that they'll believe the same things. What should happen in your mind here?
Ability. And if Harvard University wants to be considered a world class university again, they have to do something about Dr. Gay because Dr. Gay is an embarrassment to education in America, not just in higher education, but also K through 12. And my hope is that we are at a turning point and that universities, they're losing students because students are not seeing a college education as a good investment. And I have met parents and grandparents who are giving their children an option of taking that college money that was saved up and starting businesses rather than going to a 4 year college. So they're losing students, they're losing respect, they're at a point where they could actually do the right thing. And all they have to do is to bring back the original intent of higher education to expose students to a marketplace of ideas, to create an environment where you're exposed to new ideas, where you have to wrestle with new ideas. That's how critical thinking takes place. It cannot take place in indoctrination centers. And I would also contend that it hurts racial and ethnic minorities the most, and especially those of us of all races who have worked our butts off to get where we are when they lower the standards and they lower them for someone who's had an opportunity to have the best education that America has to offer, and they're lowering the standard for that person? I don't think so. And I said in another interview, I cannot let this go. I can't let it go because the future of American education is at stake. And what is happening is harming everyone. And I intend to stay on Dr. Gay's, not Dr. Gay, because I don't know about whether she earned her doctorate, but President Gay's case, just like white on rice, until she
Dr.
resigns.
Dr. Swain, you're fantastic. I appreciate you coming on with us and sharing your story. And good luck with all those grandkids and great grandkids as Christmas gets closer. I'm sure you're super busy, as many of us are, with all of that. And we appreciate you giving us that time.
Thank you.